Yeah, I would say that this show, it really caught the tail end of that generation where most of them grew up outside and they were, the rules were usually just be home by the time the street lights are on. But
Mm-hmm.
then like that's like the tail end. Like this show just caught the end of that generation, and then like
Mm-hmm.
it entered like the early 2000s, which is when all of that blew up. Mobile internet, convenience, video games, everything.
Yeah. Hello, everyone. Welcome to an episode of The Box Cutter, where we take apart an episode of Disney's Out of the Box and see if it still holds up. My name is Daniel, and my co-host for today, by popular demand, my good friend from Cal Poly Pomona, the Mr. Hawri Jabari.
Hello world. Is my mic okay? Can everyone
Yeah.
hear me?
What? I'm
Is
kidding.
my mic volume? Oh, okay. There we go.
So,
Nice.
So, what have you been up to besides grilling and virtual trips to Disneyland since we last talked?
Man, since the last podcast episode, I have just been so busy with school. As a kid, the only time you take summer school is when you had to, when the school made you.
Mm-hmm.
As an adult, you have these responsibilities to get ahead and whatnot. It's nice because you feel productive. You feel like,
Yeah.
even if you don't do anything that day, if you just do your homework or do whatever you need for school, you just feel like you did a lot. So,
Yeah. When I was at community college, I was like nonstop taking courses like winter, spring, summer, fall. I remember though too in high school, I actually had to take summer school courses because even though I was like a smart kid, I was very lazy and I had to repeat a few classes because apparently a D is not considered passing even though they say it's passing. So our episode then, shall we get to it? Yes?
yes.
Alright, so our episode for today is called Seeds of Imagination.
Ooh. Like I said before in the last podcast, I was not a very imaginative kid. I didn't like playing.
You weren't. Were you more of a kid that just liked to play sports, like you did all the community center sports?
More like video games. I was introduced early to video games.
I mean,
And, who needs imagination when you got a video game?
That is true. Because, like, ironically, we're the same age. Hard to find people that are the same age as you sometimes. But, yeah, we're part of that age range where video games were introduced and they became popular, like N64, PlayStation, Super Nintendo.
Yeah,
Xbox,
I feel like our generation
Dreamcast.
was the first generation that had portability because the Game Boy Advance really
Yep.
took off.
Game Boy
Right
Advance.
after us, it was the Nintendo DS.
Yeah, so a lot of...
It was convenient.
A lot of convenience. It was a lot of stuff that was revolutionizing, like the internet was going mobile and cell phones were getting more advanced. Touchscreens were becoming a public commodity, as well as, like you said, video games just being a lot more accessible. Older consoles became cheaper, and newer consoles were being made. So it was definitely a time of, I guess you could say, a shift from being outside to staying inside, playing video games, being on your phone, watching TV. It's an interesting time from the late 90s. An interesting time from the late 90s to the early 2000s, where we were playing outside, slowly reclusing into our houses to play video games, and now most everyone stays inside, streaming on their TV, on their phone, on their computer, playing games. And as much as we chastise it, it's also helped us to connect with people from all parts of the world, is how I would also see it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean,
But all of these episodes that I've seen so far have really focused like that different type of play style of like the 90s, the late 80s, early 90s.
hmm
Yeah.
So, Seeds of Imagination starts with Vivian in the clubhouse watering some bean plants that she grew last week. And so she explained that she planted them and they were able to grow, like, I'm gonna guess 6 inches in a week. I've never grown bean plants. I've grown green onions, I've grown mint plants, I've grown lemongrass. But I've never been in those kindergarten classes where you grow a bean seed. Did you ever do that?
I did. I have like vague memories of preschool doing that. I think what we did is we planted sunflowers, if I remember correctly. I mean, maybe beans grow a lot quicker, but ours was like it was more like a semester project. So by the end of
Mm.
the semester, they grew to like a decent size. Yeah,
Yeah, because
it was enough. It grew big enough to where you can go plant it outside. You know.
yeah, it's like it just seems like a little too quick for the plants to have grown 6 inches if she planted them a week ago. Anyway, so yeah, she plants them, and then Tony comes in with Cece, Matt, and Jill. And then the kids ask about the plants, like what kind they are or where she got them from. And she explains that she grew those plants, and she also explains that plants grow slowly. She
Yeah.
points to a straw in the pot where she is marking how tall the plants grow. When she points to them, Vivian offers to Jill to mark it, and Matt chimes in that it reminds him of his height chart. Did you ever have a height chart? I never had a height chart.
I never had one either, but you know, growing up, I always saw that in like shows and stuff. It was like usually in the door frame or something.
Yeah, I saw it in like commercials or like movies where like you just have these kids being impatient, going every 5 minutes to measure themselves. Am I getting any bigger? Am I any taller? So
No, the only time I saw my height was at the doctor's. As a kid, I moved around a lot, so it would
you
be
moved around a
pointless
lot.
to have.
You never told me you moved around a lot. Where were you first from?
Oh, I mean, I was always in San Diego. We just moved
Mm-hmm.
around to different parts of Chula Vista and stuff.
Oh, I see. Chula Vista is like a little bit south of
It's
San
very
Diego.
south. Yeah, yeah,
Very south, almost close to Tijuana. Yeah.
yeah, yeah. It's probably like 20 minutes north of Tijuana.
20 minutes.
Like in 20 minutes, I could get to like the line to go to the border.
Did I ever ask you if you knew Spanish?
No, I don't know. I don't speak Spanish. I took it in high school, but because I never had any Spanish-speaking friends, I was never able to practice.
But you lived in San Diego or close to San Diego, and you lived near Tijuana.
Yeah.
So it. I know. I mean, I chose French because I thought I was being fancy.
I mean, don't get me wrong. There were plenty of moments in my life growing up in Chula Vista where it would have been very useful to know Spanish, but English is enough to like get by.
That is true. I mean, people just think, oh, you just have to know words and phrases. It's it's a lot harder than that. It has to do with gender classification, and you have to know how to conjugate correctly as well as the pronouns.
Yeah, of course, and also like showing respect by using like usted instead of like
Usted is reserved for people older than you, and
right, but like there's like the formal and informal way of speaking, and usted is like a formal way, but like a non-formal like casual way. Even if they're older, you wouldn't use it. You know.
Yeah.
It just creates a different type of atmosphere in the
Mm-hmm.
conversation.
What's interesting, though, I know that we're talking about Spanish, and it has nothing to do with the show, but what's interesting is that in school they teach us European Spanish versus
Spain Spanish
versus like localized Spanish, which would be Mexican Spanish. I feel like they should do that, like modify it to fit the the Spanish that is geographically near where you reside. Like in California, it should be Mexican Spanish versus like let's say you live on the East Coast, it should be like Puerto Rican Spanish. Because they're definitely
Cuban Spanish
or Cuban Spanish, yeah. Because they're definitely different. And I'm just so tired of people saying, "Oh, you speak Mexican." No, I don't speak a country. I speak Spanish.
Yeah, and a specific dialect of Spanish from
Mm-hmm.
Mexico.
But yeah, that's something that's just popped in my head right now. So, but yeah, height charts.
Height charts. In the movies, I would always think to myself, like, wow, these kids like really grow up in the same house their whole life. And then it wasn't until I was older where I met kids who actually were like that. They had just been there in one house their whole life.
I've kind of had that experience of living in one house my whole life, but that's because before that, we were like really dirt poor that we rented the back area of someone's house. And it wasn't until I was in third grade that we were able to, with the help of some family friends, afford to buy a house. And yeah, it was like at first I was kind of like scared and I cried because I didn't want to move. But then they're like, oh no, we're just moving up the street. Yeah, I kind of know the feeling of moving, but at the same time, I also have that experience of being in one house for practically
One
my whole life.
neighborhood, at least, right?
Mm-hmm, one neighborhood. As they're talking about height charts, this reminds Tony of when he had a height chart, and Cece talks about how all this growing that they're talking about, she feels like she'll never get any taller. But Vivian assures her that just like plants, people grow with time. And Tony tells her a story about how he was her height one time, and he was shorter than his mom until one day he was as tall as her. But then after that, he kept growing and eventually passed her. But then again, Tony's like 6 feet tall.
I didn't like how Tony gave her false hope. Because she was like, maybe I'll be as tall as you, Tony, because you were my size once. So that means I could be your size. And then Tony was like, yeah, you're definitely right. That could happen. But in reality, it's like, no, little girl. Like, listen, Cece, you're like a Hispanic female, and he is a African American male. Like, chances are you're not going to be taller than him.
She could be. After Tony tells her that story, Cece then asks if the bean plants that Vivian grew will grow seeds. And Vivian explains that they're just baby plants. And they can't do everything that full-grown plants can do, which has Jill relate this to how her baby brother can't even talk yet. It's a great way of explaining stages of life and what our capabilities are within those stages. So, if like a baby plant or a baby, they can't do everything that a full-grown plant or a full-grown person can do. So, everyone then talks about what seeds need to grow. So they're like, seeds need water, seeds need sun, seeds need air, seeds need soil, all that stuff.
No, that's not how they do it.
I know how they do it. I'm getting to that. So after they move one of the potted plants to the window, Cece gets the idea of pretending to be a seed and growing into a plant.
It's music time!
As you were saying, the first song is called Seeds Need. I thought it was a great way to teach kids the basic things that seeds need to grow, which is water, sun, soil, and lots of air.
I mean, I definitely thought it was repetitive, you know? Like, the entire, 2-minute song was maybe, 5 or 6 words. So I thought that was very creative of them to make a catchy song with few words that stuck on, a very nice beat, you know?
Mm-hmm. And it encouraged the viewers to pretend along and be a seed and copy what Matt, Jill, and Cece were doing, which was crouching on the ground, and they start sprouting, and then they start growing a little bit until they're like full-grown plants or trees or whatever.
You know, they're like, seeds need water, you know?
Yes.
The whole song, except they replaced water with sun and dirt and so on and so forth.
Yeah. I just felt like the music, like I said, the instrumental, the music of it was very VHS. Do you get what I'm saying? Like low budget, educational VHS.
Yeah.
What I noticed too is that Cece got in front of Matt and blocked his face. I didn't catch it at first, but then after rewatching it to take notes, I was kind of like, okay, Cece, you're being a bit of a show-off here.
I mean, this is the second episode I've seen Cece in.
Mm-hmm.
So, from my perspective, she is the star of the show.
Once they finish singing their song, Jill asks where seeds come from. And part of me is just like, did you not just sing a song about seeds?
No. They sung a song about plants growing.
That's true, they did. But for her to be like, where do seeds come from? Candy. I don't like plants. Hello, they come from plants. But then again, I know that because I'm old. She's a kid, so I have to cut some slack for kids not knowing where seeds come from.
Of course, there was a time in your life when you didn't know where seeds came from.
That is true. And Vivian explains that has she ever ate an apple? With her saying, I love apples. What do you get when you get to the middle of an apple? And that's when Jill figures out that seeds come from fruit. So Jill's question about seeds reminds Vivian of something that can be made that grows just like a tree.
It's arts and crafts time!
So the craft for today was paper trees. Viv puts on a show of how the kids give the newspaper soil, sun, and water, and she helps the paper tree to grow. And then we get this really weird zoom in on Matt's face, where he's like lost in this. He's not even looking at the tree until like Tony points to him, and even then he's like, what am I supposed to do? He's like looking all over the place. I don't know.
Well, when she was like raising the tree.
Yeah, it like you get a zoom in on Matt's face, and then he's just like looking all over the place, like as if he's lost in the scene. So the craft involves 3 sheets of newspaper, tape, and scissors.
I like this craft.
I
definitely liked it better than the Tube Town crafts because I thought this one was easier. It was entertaining.
Mm-hmm.
And also later on in the episode, they use it for the play. So
yeah, they use it for the story. So Vivian's like, so you get 3 papers and you tape them together and then you roll it up, make sure that all the sides are in and even. And then Jill is holding the newspaper roll for her while Vivian gets a piece of tape. And then you hear Cece mutter to Jill, I told you it goes like that. And then Tony's trying to like tune them out so that way the boom mic doesn't pick it up.
Cece is like, I told you, I was right. Why don't you listen to me?
Pretty much.
I'm obnoxious. Is that what you picked up from those lines?
All I'm saying is that Cece is a diva.
Definitely.
There's nothing wrong with being a diva.
She wants to be the star, you know?
She doesn't have to try so hard. She's naturally a magnetic personality. When I hear those little gripes of, I told you it goes that way, or when she blocks Matt from the camera shot, it kind of gives like an off-putting vibe to her. Like, she doesn't have to do that, because...
Right, but the fact that she does try so hard is off-putting.
Yes, it's off-putting, because she doesn't have to, because she just gets your attention naturally. I thought it was an easy craft. It's a great party decoration, because you can also do it with regular paper, you can do it with construction paper, you can do it with, you can do it with all sorts of paper.
Yeah, it's so easy. You just need paper, scissors, and tape.
What I appreciate is that when they're doing this craft, it's Tony and Vivian that are cutting the paper tree versus the kids grabbing the scissors and cutting it. Because I know some kids are going to grab scissors and start cutting. But I appreciate them always making sure that Tony and Vivian are the ones cutting it versus the kids cutting it. Because then parents don't have to worry about their kids saying, oh, well, I saw the kids do it on the show, so why can't I cut the leaves out of the tree?
Mm-hmm.
So I do appreciate them always considering
safety.
Safety of showing, have an adult cut it out for you. However, I will say the way that they were cutting it was too much work. What they could have done was they could have stuck one of the blades of the scissors inside the tube to cut one part, and then so that way it's easier to cut versus having to cut like a bunch of layers all at once, and then it comes out all like ugly, the cuts. You get what I'm saying?
Yeah, but also, did you notice at the end, like all of their trees looked different, had different cuts and of thickness and stuff?
Yeah, I did notice that because like Matt's was really tightly rolled
Yes,
up.
wound up. Yeah, and
Cece's
then
was like in the middle, and then Jill's was like a very loose roll.
yeah, it was loose, and because of that, the leaves were a lot wider.
Mm-hmm. So I thought that was a very interesting thing. I was like, huh, they're all different like tightnesses.
It made it
Tightnesses.
look
That's not a word.
nicer, you know. It made it. They were all unique.
Yeah, and what you can also even do too is you can draw out how you want to cut the leaves from one side, so that way if you want them to be like spear tipped, then you just like cut out a pattern around it
Right,
and
or like a zigzag or something.
mm-hmm. Or
Yeah.
you can just make the slits and then cut slits on each of the leaves, and then it'll make it look like palm fronds. But yeah, I did this project with my niece, and she really liked it. We didn't use newspaper; we used like regular paper, and it looked like corn husk. But again, I think it's a really neat party decoration. After they finish making their trees, Jill asks, "Don't real trees take a long time to grow?" And Vivian answers yes, just like people, reiterating to us that things take time to grow. So I noticed that in a few episodes where they reiterate certain things. So they have an interesting method of teaching without necessarily shoving it in your face.
Yeah, it's just dropping information subtly,
Yeah.
like with repetition.
So Jill asks, "Don't real trees take a long time to grow?" And Vivian answers yes, just like people.
It's music time.
The song is "It's Fun to Grow." Well,
This one was more lyrically complex, I feel.
mm-hmm.
I don't remember exactly the words that they said, but what I do remember is they had
Little
like
movements.
Vivian would say a line, and then everyone would jump in with like a whole nother different new line. You know?
Yeah, what I like though too is that at the very beginning, the Vivian shows us. So you're gonna touch the ground, touch your knees, and then high five to somebody.
Mm-hmm.
And so they do that in the song, and the song has a reggae type of vibe to it, like a slow ska reggae type of thing going on with the melody, and it's very engaging, but it's very short. And what I noticed too is that at the very very end, they have this weird cut from them being in partners where they touch the ground, touch their knees, and then high five into like a ring around circle, and then it suddenly ends. Like I said, it was very reggae, very ska. I like this one, but Seed's Need just sticks out more to me.
Oh, it's definitely more memorable. It was so simple of a song that I remember the song right now.
That's always the issue though with Out of the Box. There's always one song from each episode that's superior to another.
Mm-hmm.
And it's very rare to have an episode where both songs are very good that you remember both of them. So after exhausting themselves, Tony suggests making paper seeds for their paper trees to grow. So what they do is Matt crumples up a newspaper into a ball, and then he gives it to Jill, and Jill tries to stick it on top of the tree, but she's not tall enough to reach the top of the newspaper tree, so she gives it to Tony, and Tony sticks it onto the tree. And Jill then points out that their tree looks like a magic beanstalk.
It's story time.
So they perform a variation of Jack and the Beanstalk called Matt and the Beanstalk.
And that was Tony's idea. Tony was like, "Hey, let's make it Matt and the Beanstalk."
Mm-hmm.
And then camera zooms into Matt. He's happy because finally there's some attention on him.
Matt's cool. Matt's the type of kid that you hang out with and you play baseball in the sand lot and go catch frogs down by the creek.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. I just get that vibe from him.
Yeah, one of those dirty kids, you know.
One of those kids that you love to hang out with, and because like you guys get dirty, you play in the mud, You go and play baseball, you ride bikes, you go catch frogs by the creek. It's like he's just really cool. He just
Simple
exudes.
guy.
He's simple. He exudes that coolness.
So then that's why he's the star of Matt and the Beanstalk.
And Matt's just so funny because when they're telling the story, it's like once upon a time, Matt and his friends are out playing and they find some seeds. Matt's all like, oh, I'll plant one and put the rest in my pocket. So he has 2 wads of newspaper and he tries to stick them in his pocket, but then you see like he can't even fit them in his pocket. So
They're
it's
just
like
crumpled up pieces of newspaper.
he's like trying to force them in there, but he can't fit them in there. But also like he's just his facial expressions too are just really funny, and like when he and everyone else meet the giant, which is played by Tony, he gets all swaggy about it, like, oh, what's up? I'm Matt. That's the vibe I got from it. I'm just like, oh my god, I love this kid. He's just he doesn't even have to try. He's unironically funny. His facial expressions, the way he talks sometimes, the things that he does. He's what Brandon should have been, but wasn't.
He's natural talent.
I don't hate Brandon.
So
So
you just prefer Matt.
yes, I prefer Matt.
You prefer Matt's acting skills.
Yes,
He's
Matt.
superior.
Top three in my eyes. Matt's top 3. So when they're climbing the beanstalk, though, there's like this weird camera direction. So as they're climbing the beanstalk, the camera goes up the slide. So it's like they're climbing from one side, and then somehow, I guess they have a camera guy, or they have like, what do you call that? Where they have like the camera rigged onto something, a crane or whatever. And so, like, yeah, it's just like this weird shot where it's like it's going from the bottom of the slide to the top. And it's just a weird angle just to show them climbing the quote unquote beanstalk. But what I also like about the story is that it teaches a sense of responsibility and consideration of others. What happens is that once they climb the beanstalk, they meet a giant, and the giant asks, well, how'd you get up here? And the kids say, well, we climbed a beanstalk. And the giant says, well, I can't even see the bottom. So he pulls the beanstalk out, and then the kids, rightfully get upset with him. The giant asks, well, what's wrong? And the kids say that plants need soil to grow. Now we can't get down. And the giant takes it as good news because now he has company. But the kids, remind him that they can't stay because their parents would get worried. And like I said, it's a great lesson of responsibility and consideration because the giant has to consider, oh, these people have families to go home to. Oh, plants need soil to grow. It instills responsibility and thinking about other things besides yourself.
And I believe Tony, he rips up the plant.
He pulls the plant from the soil.
And then that's when the kids start worrying, and then Matt kind of saves the day on this one.
Matt just so happened to have a seed in his pocket, and he drops it, and it lands in a nice patch of soil, and it starts to grow right away. And
Thanks to Vivian.
And everyone celebrates, but the giant, because the giant is sad because he's going to be lonely again. But the kids say, oh, well, we can come and visit you. Just make sure to take care of the beanstalk so that way we have a way to stay connected. Or you can even come down and visit us. It shows consideration of both sides. The giant considering the feelings of his visitors, and Matt and his friends considering the feelings of the giant and coming to visit him so he doesn't feel lonely. So the story concludes, and Vivian surprises the kids by gifting them each a bean plant she was tending to at the start of the episode. Tony takes the kids home, which gives Vivian a chance to tell us how amazing seeds are. They start off so small, but then grow and grow just like we do. And she suggests viewers to plant a seed and see what grows from that seed. And that was Seeds of Imagination. So, let's go ahead and talk about everyone's acting then. What did you think of Tony?
Tony was definitely okay. I feel like he was pro Matt on this episode. It was his idea to name the play Matt and the Beanstalk, and when they were making the paper crafts, Tony was helping Matt out while Vivian was helping the girls.
I thought he was very approachable and was able to relate some of the concepts that Vivian explained with his own experiences, making it even more relatable to the viewers. Because some kids think, oh, I'll never grow to be taller because they're so short. But then Tony gave that story about how he used to be shorter than his mom, but then he grew, and then one day he passed his mom. Let's move on to Vivian then.
I would say she was the main person, the main host of this episode. She was the one that started. It was her hobby to grow the bean plants. It was her arts and crafts idea to make the trees.
I mean, she's always the one taking the lead, and Tony's kind of her support.
Yeah.
And I feel like that's normally how it falls in terms of how the episodes are formatted. But there are the odd occasions of where Tony will lead an episode and Vivian will be the one supporting everyone.
Right, like helping out with whatever ideas Tony has.
She was able to answer all the kids' questions, and just very natural this episode, just the way she answered the questions of like when Jill asked her where the seeds come from, and she said, well, have you ever had an apple? When you get to the middle, what do you find? So she just able to answer questions, because kids always have a lot of questions. They can ask up to like...
and, the ability to answer them in a very relatable way. Because, those kids are all at the age where they've all had apples, but they they haven't really thought of necessarily the core of the apple, because they just toss it without thinking it. So for her to relate that back, and then they were like, their minds were blown, because they never made that connection before.
Let's move on to the kids then. Starting with Miss Cece.
Cece, phenomenal. Star of the show. She is 2 for 2 on my list right now. And she is definitely the more outgoing one, the one that just kind of... Tony or Vivian, they say a concept or they explain a story, and she just blurts something out. Because you know what? She just wants to have some limelight,
Like in Tube Town, where they were talking about tubes and then how she was able to make an instrument that her grandfather taught her. And then in this episode, when they're talking about what seeds need to grow, she takes the lead by saying seeds need sun, and she grabs the pot and takes it to the windowsill.
Yeah. I noticed that scene. I remember that one. Vivian was just still sitting by her, planter. And she's just kind of like looking at this girl like, what? She just picked up my plant and is taking it somewhere else? But that's the type of actor Cece is, She takes charge.
Yeah. I mean, she's a diva, but in, I guess, both ways. A diva in that she puts her money where her mouth is, but also a diva in how she treats others sometimes. Like when she was talking to Jill, muttering under her breath, I told you that's how it goes. That was a very diva thing of her to do. Or when they were doing the song Seeds Need, she was in front of Matt blocking his face from the camera. Again, just trying to be the center of attention. She doesn't have to, because she naturally grabs people's attention. And when she did that stuff, it just kind of off-put me about her a little bit. I still like her. I never have anything wrong to say about her other than that one line she messed up in Tube Town. But other than that, she's really good at, acting and portraying things really naturally. So then we have Jill.
She was nice. She seemed quiet and reserved. The parts during the arts and crafts scene, she was definitely very patient with rolling it up and stuff and waiting for Vivian to help her, because I feel like Vivian went to Cece first.
Yeah, Jill sometimes can be very mousy, but I think that's what's endearing about her, that she's kind of quiet, kind of like a wallflower. But she's also very inquisitive, and she, in this episode, just looked to be having genuine fun with all of it, like making the trees and acting out the story and dancing along and singing the song. She just seemed like she was just having natural fun with it, and just asking a lot of questions about seeds and plants.
Mm-hmm.
And lastly, we have Matt.
I also liked him better than Brandon. No offense to Brandon. Matt was just, he had a warm personality. He was soft spoken in a sense during the play. I don't know. I like Matt. Yeah.
Yeah, Matt just has like this natural coolness about him. And some kids do have this like natural coolness where they don't have to do much to get people to be interested in them because they just get in their head this idea of, oh, he's so cool. And that's what I get from Matt. I've had students where they don't do anything to grab people's attention, but people just put him on this pedestal of, oh, he's so cool, I want to be his friend. And I've always just, I don't know how you get that. It's just you either have it or you don't. And Matt's just one of those kids that just has this natural coolness that makes everyone seem to like him. Yeah, he's very chill and lax. He doesn't look like he's acting sometimes, though. It's like it just comes out very natural. And like I said, he's very unintentionally funny. Like with the facial expressions he gives. Like when he's trying to act more than usual, it comes off a little face palmy to me.
Mm-hmm.
Like when they were doing Matt and the Beanstalk, where he gets all this swag to shake hands with Giant. He's like, "Sup, I'm Matt. This is my friend Cece and Jill."
Mm-hmm.
Like just
This
so
is my
swaggy.
friend Cece and Jill because this story is called Matt and the Beanstalk.
Yeah, it's just, I don't know. When he forces the acting to happen, it comes off very funny in a bad way. Did you know, though, there's this show called, on Stars called Power? It's like this mafia crime show, crime drama or whatever. He was in that, and then he got killed off.
Oh, as a child actor, he was in that?
Recently.
Oh, nice.
So, I mean, he's
Good.
still
He
acting.
still has an acting career.
He's still acting. He takes small roles, but he was in Orange Is the New Black and stuff. So he also makes films. He's a indie filmmaker.
That's pretty good too. Orange Is the New Black. I watched that for a while. It's a good show. Very popular.
Mm-hmm. All right then. So let's go ahead and give our verdict then on everything. So first things first. Let's talk about, what do you think of the theme of seeds and plants? Do you think that's something that still piques the interest of kids?
Yeah. Like I do think that it was like a double meaning between just the plants and the people, because there were a lot of parallels, like Jill talking about her brother, comparing the little baby brother to the little baby plant, and how there's like this cycle of maturity that people and plants go through. There's that comparison of, oh, the plant is growing and then Cece wants to be as tall as Tony one day. So there's always that back and forth between comparing the plants with the people. I guess it kind of like subtly also teaches kids that, like, plants and people and life in general are all very similar, no matter if you're a plant or not. I just, life in general is very similar.
I think it still piques some interest because kids are just naturally curious. They want to know how things operate and work and why they work a certain way. And I feel that it would definitely interest some kids of learning how seeds grow, and then they'll be curious to want to plant seeds like apple seeds or lemon seeds and see if they grow. So for me, I think it holds up.
Yeah, I agree.
Do you think the music was good quality, or do you think it was just not good compared to other things you've heard on the show?
I mean, I liked Seeds Need. That was a good song. It was catchy. And the other one was also good, don't get me wrong. It just wasn't as memorable because it was a more complex song. It had like a lot more lyrics that may be harder for kids to remember. But I do remember enjoying both instrumentals. The beats, they were very fast paced and happy.
I like the engagement and the repetitiveness of Seeds Need, but I don't like how very low budget electric keyboard VHS educational tape it was. The other song, It's Fun to Grow, I liked that it also had something to get viewers involved, and it had a more defined genre of music, which was like this reggae, ska type of feeling. But it just was overshadowed by Seasoning because Seasoning is very repetitive and it's just a little more simple with its lyrics, but it was just a little bit longer. But overall, I think in terms of engagement and how fun the songs are, I think it holds up.
Mm-hmm.
Let's talk about the arts and crafts. So right off the bat, arts and crafts, this is a very timeless craft that doesn't require lots of money, doesn't require lots of materials. It just needs a parent to help out with just paper, tape, and scissors.
Yeah, I definitely like this craft better than the last episode I saw. It's so simple and it looks visually very nice. And the age group that this was targeted at, very young kids, for them when they like reveal like the final tree, when they like bring it up, the newspaper, it's really big compared to them. So for them it's probably even more exciting.
I feel like it was a craft that was better planned out versus some other crafts like in Tubetown. Moving on to the story. Do you feel that the story is, again, something timeless that will not have people questioning the morals of it? Or do you feel like it's dated because of
I feel like
what
the
they're
story
presenting?
was. I think it was a watered down version of the actual Jack and the Beanstalk story, because the giant wasn't really mad and they weren't ever in really danger. It was kind of just like it was a simple story. They go up to
Mm-hmm.
the beanstalk, they meet the giant. Giant
Mm-hmm.
somehow rips the plant off.
Mm-hmm.
Then Matt kind of saves the day, and then they just tell the giant like, "Don't worry, we'll be back. We're still friends." But in the original Jack and the Beanstalk, there was what, the golden goose.
Yeah, there were the golden goose, there were the
Yeah,
cow, there were magic beans, there was Jack and his mom who were poor.
exactly. So they really stripped down the original story to make it fit into this like 5 minute time frame. You
Mm-hmm.
know?
I don't know. I just feel like there is a timelessness to it because there's nothing wrong with what they're saying. They're instilling these messages of be considerate of other people, be considerate of things around you, be responsible for what you do. For me, even though it was watered down, I feel like it still holds up as a story.
Yeah, I mean, there's definitely the aspect of teaching empathy, like see the world in another person's shoes,
Mm-hmm.
because the
All right.
giant was kind of just seeing things in just his own perspective.
Mm-hmm. And lastly, the overall performance. Sorry, my chair squeaks sometimes. So, lastly, the overall performance of everyone in this episode.
Pretty great. The kids had good chemistry. There was no tension between the individual kids themselves. I feel like, Tony and Vivian, um, they had good songs and simple crafts, which I think it doesn't sound like it'd be a good thing, but I feel like keeping every segment simple makes it more memorable.
I think the acting overall in this episode, I think it was good. I like how natural the conversations were and how relatable they were. Like how when Jill says her baby brother isn't even old enough to talk, or how Matt says that straw reminds him of his height chart, or how even Cece, how she's like, um, sometimes I just feel like I'm not growing any bigger. Those are all things that kids talk about and think about. It's like it makes you just think what is scripted and what's real in
Mm-hmm.
because their acting is just that natural sometimes that it's hard to tell if they're reading from a script or not. So overall, Seeds of Imagination still holds up. So Hawri, thanks again for coming on the show. Make sure to leave a comment if you like what you hear. Why not subscribe to my YouTube channel? I'm also on SoundCloud and Apple Podcasts as the Box Cutter Podcast. Send me an email at theboxcutter@gmail.com. Tell me what you like, tell me what you don't like, tell me what I can improve on or any suggestions, because it takes a village to raise something beautiful. In the words of Tony and Vivian, so long, farewell, until we meet again.
Now I'm big, but I still love to play. Hey, hey.